Hey guys, what's up? I'm Aaron here with AGBCars back again, and today we're talking about the future of Formula 1 in terms of new rules and regulations that will be coming into place for 2016 and 2017 World Championships. So this all comes from a meeting of the strategy group a few days ago, and they came up with some ideas that they're going to implement into Formula 1 to try and improve the show and improve the sport. So, so I'm just going to talk about this now and tell you my views on all the new rules that are being put into place in the next few years. So, first of all, for 2016, so next year, there is only one real new change, and that is that the teams will now be able to choose the two compounds of tyre that they want to run at every race weekend. So as you know now, there are four compounds of dry tyres, which there will be again next year, super soft, soft, medium and hard. And at the moment, Pirelli choose two tyres for every race weekend based on what they deem to be most appropriate due to the circuit and the conditions of climate and so forth. But some teams may be able to run better on a certain tyre than another team will, so they have a disadvantage and then an advantage at certain races. So now that's been left up to teams to choose the two compounds of tyres that they feel they are able to use the best. So that's sort of an improvement, you might say. And then for 2017 we get into quite interesting changes. The first of these is faster cars are proposed for 2017. They claim up to a 6-second drop in lap times through aerodynamic rules evolution, wider tyres and a reduction of car weight. Now, that is the interesting one, because a 6-second drop in lap time is pretty huge. That is a significant speed increase that they are proposing, and they aim to do that through aerodynamic rule changes. So how that will work, I can only assume, is that they will allow more aero development and sort of ease back the rules about how much you can do with the car. Because say for instance in 2011 when Red Bull came up with the blown diffuser and other little tricks around the car, they gained some huge lap time, which everyone else then copied as well. So it'll be things like that, but all of that, like more aero in the car, does mean that the cars will not be able to follow each other as closely as they would like to be able to pass. So that may have an effect on the excitement of races and how good a race is in terms of excitement value. And then wider tyres and a reduction of car weight is also interesting, because wider tyres on the rear is something that they've been talking about now for a while. And there's also talks of Michelin returning to Formula 1, and we don't know yet. We don't know if they really are considering it, and we don't know then if it will be a tyre war between them and Pirelli like it was in the past with Bridgestone, or if they hope to come in as a single supplier. So I would like to see another tyre manufacturer in F1. I think would give another degree of excitement and strategy into F1. And then a reduction of car weight is also interesting, because the cars are pretty much as light as they can be, so I really don't see how they can make that even less. And then, probably the most important thing to take out of this whole statement is the reintroduction of refueling, but maintaining a maximum race fuel allowance. So, refueling is an interesting topic. There are people who really want it back. There are people who really don't want it back. I'm kind of halfway in the middle. I don't really mind. I suppose I would like to see it back just because it will make the cars lighter, and like the fuel load won't be as great as it is now. So the drivers will be able to push a bit more, which will obviously make it more exciting in itself. But refueling was stopped in 2010, so from the 2010 season on, they had to start with the amount of fuel for the whole race, and they had some pretty good reasons for that, i.e. the safety factor, because refueling is quite dangerous in the pit lane, and there's been a lot of incidents. For example, Felipe Massa lost the world championship really in '08 because of a slip up at the pit stops, where he dragged the fuel hose down the pit lane, and so it was banned then from 2010. So it'll be interesting to see if it does come back. All these changes are not official yet. They're just ideas that have come from the strategy group meeting. Then higher revving engines and increased noise is also an interesting one. They plan to increase the RPM up to 15,000 from only 12,000 it is now. And of course, there was a time that some cars were reaching 20,000 RPM, which is, of course, how it sounded so loud. But now it's only 12,000, and a lot of them don't even go to 10,000 because there's more torque and performance in some cases down at lower revs, and an increased noise will obviously follow from higher revving engines, because that's obviously what makes the noise in an engine. Also on that, there's talk of having less gears, so bringing it back to only 6 gears, which will mean they have to rev higher because there isn't as many gears. They also want more aggressive looks, which is interesting because they're kind of admitting that the cars now are quite plain and boring. So I can only imagine that they want to go back to kind of 2008 and before, because the rules were changed in 2009, which kind of cleaned up the cars and made the airflow over them cleaner, which was hoped to make more overtaking, and it didn't really work. But I think the cars kind of the mid to late 2000s were the best looking anyway, of what I can remember. So I would not be opposed to going back to those days in terms of looks. And then they've also mentioned a global reflection on the race weekend format, which is interesting because I can only imagine that's talking about taking out free practice, which I don't really want, because free practice is kind of essential in F1. It's always been there, and they kind of needed the teams to sort of set up the car and prepare for the race again. So I hope free practice is not dropped. And then there could be a discussion about having a 2-race format, but I personally wouldn't really want that, because I think Formula 1 is just one race of between an hour and a half to 2 hours in length. Other series do make the 2 or 3 race format work really well, namely the VTCC, because that is really action-packed, I suppose, and F1 isn't really like that, and the strategy in F1 kind of needs longer races, and because they're bringing back refueling, it would, if the races were shortened and there were two of them, then the reintroduction of refueling would not really be too much of a concern. And the final thing then is a measure to make starts only activated by the driver without any outside assistance, which is also interesting because at the moment the start is one of the most complicated parts of the race weekend, and on the formation lap there's a lot going on inside the cockpit between warming the tyres and the brakes, but also finding the clutch bite point, as it's called, which then sets up for the start when the both clutch paddles are released and so forth. It's very complicated, but if it was more so based on the driver, I think it would have an advantage for some drivers but not others. So namely people like Felipe Massa would benefit from a change like that because he always makes fantastic starts, and I think if this change was made, people like him who make the great starts would really have an advantage over others. So that's it for the moment. There probably will be further updates between now and the start of next season, of which I will keep you informed. So until then, make sure you like this video if you found it informative or entertaining or anything, and subscribe to AGBCars for more videos like this and all the rest of it. So until next time, thank you very much for listening here, and goodbye.